Happy Friday. Welcome to the news and why it matters. I am Sara Gonzalez. Stu Burgier, what's the top story for you today?
As if we needed it. Even more evidence that the Trump administration has hate-mongering intent on the border. But we've got more, and we'll give it to you today.
Jason Buttrill.
More fallout from the Mueller report indictments, but not necessarily from the side you might think.
All right, and Jason Howerton.
I'm starting to get this feeling that Congresswoman Omar does not really like America that much.
Huh.
Like it just,
what?
Yeah, it's like a gut.
What would give you that idea?
Yeah.
Wow, controversial.
Next thing you know, you're going to tell me that you don't think she's very bright.
I have my suspicions.
A lot to get into, but first we want to thank our sponsor, American Financing. Like I always say, I think that they should change the tagline to "Smart enough not to do business with Stu."
Hurts every time you say it. I don't know if you're trying to hurt me every time you say it, but it does work.
Yeah.
That's a winning advertising strategy, though.
I think so.
More companies.
Honestly, for almost any company, it works well. But yeah, no, American Financing I did actually do business with them and talk to them for a while. They tried to walk me through this mortgage and try to make me have a sensible choice on the mortgage. Now, I wanted something I would call not stupid, but exotic. Is the way I would describe what I was looking for. They were like, well, that's not really what we do here. We don't really do loan shark situations, but they actually were able to walk me through exactly what everything meant, which was really important. They got me to a deal that I was, I wanted to talk to 25 places, and they had the best sensible deal. I thought it was interesting that when it came down to it, they could have, I know these people are good people. They could have easily talked me into taking their deal, but they actually said, you know what, for what you're looking for, that other one might actually work better. So it was interesting. These are the type of people they are. They're not on commission. I mean, this is the best evidence of that, right? They didn't need to force a sale because they were on commission. They're on salary. So they just want to get you to your best deal, and they do a great job doing that.
And you've got no broken legs yet.
No, well, I've been able to occasionally pay my bills, so we're still there. But I'm at 37% interest rates now, which is a little higher than I was expecting.
and you got a good script out of it, Goodfellas 2, which will probably be coming at you pretty soon.
You can go to AmericanFinancing.net or call 800-906-2440. All right, Stu, let's talk about the hate-mongering White House.
Well, we know they're hate mongers over there at the White House. They just don't like Mexicans. They don't if they don't like you.
Yeah,
even though you say nice things about them sometimes, they still don't like you because of your heritage. But they are they have this new proposal that they were tossing around in the White House. It's now been leaked to the New York Times, and I think the Washington Post both got their hands on these emails. They're emails from aides in the White House talking about what we should do with this border crisis. As you know, they went from 8,000 families to 53,000 families crossing in a month. They went from a much smaller number to 92,000. It's the highest in 12 years. It's up 375% year to year.
Just the 375.
Just not more than that.
Chuck Schumer just said that we're at historic lows, though. So those numbers don't really
I still want to know
match.
what he was even looking at.
I don't know what he was reading. I really don't, because I've looked at the Border Patrol numbers, and I'm like, what is he? Is he using numbers from 5 years ago?
I'd say it's an outdated script, right? Like 2017 was historic lows.
Right.
So I mean, if you look at, if you're in mid 2018 or late 2018 or even early 2019, your most recent numbers would be 2017, and you could claim that. Now the numbers have come out. Again, you can't claim it because they put out the numbers monthly. But if you want to look at an annual report, you wouldn't get that until at least January 2019. So maybe you can kind of justify it. He's just late to the game.
That's very kind of you.
This is exactly. I mean, these people stretch these things all the time. But a talking point of historical lows, it has been higher at other points, but never like this with families. And the higher is, we're talking 20 years ago if you want to find higher numbers. Anyway, so they decided to kind of try to toss around some. We always used to call this the safety tree. Like, you get in the safety tree, let's just toss around ideas. Some of them might be dumb, some of them might work, but don't criticize me for them because we're in the safety tree. So the safety tree idea that was emailed around was this idea that they would take their excess illegal immigrants when they got past the detainment facilities and they were all filled, and start, instead of just releasing them in the border towns, actually bus them to sanctuary cities and release them there. Now, you'd think that this would be a delightful development for the left because we love illegal immigrants. We want them all in our sanctuary cities. That's why they're sanctuary cities.
That's what they're for, yeah.
So here's the email that was leaked, and just to give you the kind of idea. The idea has been raised by one or two principals that if we were unable to build sufficient temporary housing, that caravan members be bused to small and mid-sized sanctuary cities. The aide is May Davis. This was November 16, so late last year. Before this got to any sort of level that we're talking about now. I mean, it's up. The border crossings are up incredibly since November. So I stopped and thought about that, and I thought, you know what? That idea it's a good idea, is what it is. Okay. Now, it's interesting. The pushback inside the administration, and it did not happen. They brought it up a couple times, and it was shot down twice. The pushback was essentially from people on the sane side of the argument, according to the New York Times, that were basically saying, look, the cost isn't, it's not worth it. Like, we're going to have to spend a lot of money to get these people to sanctuary cities, and it's not going to be worth it. Just release them here. But is that fair to border towns? I mean, I know we're looking at like we're going to punish liberals by putting them in their sanctuary cities. First of all, they don't see it as punishment. At least that's not what they say. They say that they want these people here and they don't want to do anything about it. That's why they're sanctuary cities. So putting people there where they're able to use all of the facilities of the city and be respected and out of the shadows would be, you'd think, better for the illegal immigrants, right? Secondly, the town, the city, actually is embracing this philosophy. They've made a big deal about it. They're putting their face into, they're actually going against federal law to say that they want this. So you'd think it would be good for them. There is a cost to us. But the cost there is, I think, number one, justified from the fact that these border towns didn't ask for this. If they're not sanctuary cities, they didn't ask for all these people to be just unloaded on them instead. It's not like they're going to some safe facility somewhere else. They're just going to be unloaded on another town. So why not give it to a town that has specifically asked to have illegal immigrants come there? And so I think that that's a justifiable part of it. And it also makes me happy and just smile a little bit.
But why then is Nancy Pelosi so upset about it?
That's exactly my next point here, because here is the quote from the Nancy Pelosi spokesperson. She says, "The extent of this administration's cynicism and cruelty cannot be overstated," said Ashley Etienne, a spokeswoman for Ms. Pelosi. "Using human beings, including little children, as pawns in their warped game to perpetuate fear and demonize immigrants is despicable and in some cases criminal." Now, wait a minute. Why? What is hateful about this? You said you're the only, a sanctuary city is more of a statement, right?
Correct.
The statement is we're going to be nice to illegal immigrants when everyone else is mean, right? That's essentially the statement. I mean, there's other legal arguments about it that we've discussed before. But bottom line is what you're saying as a city is we're nice, everyone else is mean. So why wouldn't it be better for the illegal immigrant to go to a place that welcomes them rather than just some random town that's enforcing federal law? This is actually a sensible, better solution for them. Mm-hmm. And it's better for the illegal immigrants who can go there and actually access the services, publicly live out of the shadows, be proud, wear shirts that say I'm an illegal immigrant all around the city. They're asking you to come. Why not help them get there?
Couldn't it be it may be inside, where the Democrats don't actually go too deep in?
Yes.
They know inside, even though they won't say it out loud, that letting thousands and thousands of unvetted immigrants might not be the greatest thing for their district.
I wonder if.
Maybe.
And
anything's possible, Jason.
Yeah, I know. It's a crazy conspiracy theory. But, I mean, this is kind of like, I think, the Trump trolling side of this in the administration, who wants to, I like that point being made. If you want them so bad, take them. Again, you're saying you're the ones that are nice to these people and we're mean. So go ahead, give it a whirl. On the other side of that, I don't understand the argument from Pelosi saying, she said the word cruelty.
Criminal.
Criminal. It's cruel to bring an illegal immigrant to San Francisco? Why? Why would that be cruel?
Have you seen San Francisco?
That's a good point. That's a good point.
I mean, I don't know what they're admitting there when they say that. But I mean, they, again, the idea, in a sensible world, right? In a sensible world where we step back from politics and everybody's saying that everybody else is wrong, we realize that this illegal immigrant situation, as far as the border goes, is a legitimate crisis just from the aspect of we don't have the facilities for the amount of people coming. However, we have giant cities who have said we are a facility for people coming over the border. So why not allow them to give it a whirl and try it out? I actually think it's a really good idea. And I think if it was presented not in a trolling way, but in a way of saying look, this is a place where the left tells us all the time it's going to be nicer to them than wherever we would put them. So let them give a shot. Let them explore.
I'll have to disagree because I think that I think it's an awesome troll. The proposed idea reads like one of the president's Twitter trolls,
Yes.
and it's awesome.
But I think that's why it's receiving pushback, and I'd like to hear your actual pushback on the idea, because I love the trolling part of it. You know, there's a certain part of me, it's a very dark part of me that likes the trolling aspect of it. But I mean, I actually think like if you're going, remember there are legal restrictions for them pushing them back over the border. They can't do that. They have to accept them as asylum claims. They don't have the facility to do it. They have to put them somewhere. If you have to release them, again, that's the premise we're at. Why not release them to a place that is friendly to them?
So yeah, and I totally get where you're coming from on it. I also think it's a huge political miss by Pelosi, because she should have. It's not going to happen. So you should have said, yeah, let them in.
Yeah,
like
right.
we'll gladly. She totally swung and missed on this.
Yeah.
But also, the reason I would think that maybe a Stephen Miller or someone like that would be like, whoa, let's hold off on that, is because. I don't know. Actually, this actually sounds like something Stephen Miller would probably propose. But regardless, someone put the brakes on it, and the reason is because it has nothing to do with them being loving immigrants, like wanting to accept them in. Why they want them has nothing to do with that. It's not about compassion. That's not what it's all about. They want tons and tons of them to come in because it provides voting base. You just bought. At least multiple decades of loyal, constituents when they do or if they become citizens. But also in their districts, the point that you made out, it's not good for their district. That's going to be hard for them to sell to their base, and they're registered voters, and they'll figure that out a little bit later once the ramifications start hitting. But it overwhelms the system. So if you're a politician, you're enabling them to overwhelm the system, which is the other goal that they want. They want massive amounts of illegal immigrants to overwhelm the system. It overwhelms the welfare system, so they can be then justified to increase the welfare system. It basically overloads every single public social, service that they have, which again enables them to grow that and give them more power. That's one of the reasons why we want to stop this to begin with.
Yeah.
So if you just allow this to happen, then you're giving them the political we care thing, but you're also giving them exactly what they want: a larger voting base and the excuse to allow this overwhelming of the system to grow the system, which is why I think it would be detrimental.
I think I agree with your argument as it applies to whether we should be releasing people into the United States.
Yeah, so I'm talking in the long term. This is really bad.
So you're saying basically you think it would wind up, because I don't think that it would wind up buying any voters, because I think when they got there, they'd find out that number one, the people in the city were not welcoming. People in San Francisco
So you're saying it would offset? I think the voters they lose versus the ones they gain.
Yeah, and I think too, though, I don't think necessarily it would be as good as I don't think necessarily it would be treated any better than they would anywhere else. I think it would honestly be, it would be offsetting, I think, on that. I understand where you're going with that. It's interesting. I mean, I think the bottom line here is, of course, the long-term solution is making sure that these things don't happen. The asylum and refugee resettlement programs are really screwed up, and we need to solve them long-term. But it's still an interesting thing, and it's also fun.
Yeah, for sure.
Back in a minute. Trolling Trump is my favorite. I mean, because it's like,
I'm up in that.
Before we move on, during the break, Stu just saw an interesting alert from the Wall Street Journal that kind of ties into the Trump conversation.
Followed by a maniacal cackle afterwards.
Yeah, it was very funny. The New York Times released this story that I was talking about as kind of a slam on the administration. Like, we caught these internal emails that show these people are nuts. They want to release illegal immigrants in the sanctuary cities. Someone asked him about it. You'd think he'd be like, yeah, no, I don't know. That was an idea we had and we brushed it off. He's like, no, we're seriously considering it. It seems like a good idea. So yeah, Trump is still on the table.
Which means it was probably his idea in the meeting, and he's like, you know what, I'm not done with it.
Yeah, I like it.
I love it.
I think they purposely leak these things sometimes just to gauge public response.
Yeah,
and if it's not too hardcore, they're like, hey.
Yeah. All right, Buttrill,
Yes.
you said another casualty from the Mueller report.
Yeah, so I don't think the indictments are over. I think some of them will continue. And really, we were kind of given a hint of this once he was like, he was told that they were passing on to local, courts, and attorney generals additional, I guess, evidence so they could pursue it on their own. So again, I think that we'll see more of this. But former Obama White House counsel Greg Craig, he has two first names. He just was indicted for making false statements to the special counsel. And what that goes back to is his interesting lobbying work. So he did some lobbying work, surprise, surprise, for Ukraine in the Russian-backed President Yanukovych back in around 2012. Now, this is the exact same thing that Paul Manafort was guilty of, and this is also the narrative that they took was, to show that the people that were in the Trump campaign were dirty and they had Russian ties. Now, I have no idea. Like, this really needs to be asked. Like, if Manafort knew this and passed this off to a local, attorney general, why didn't he include this with the Manafort?
You mean Mueller?
Mueller, yeah.
Sorry, yeah.
Why didn't Mueller include this? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, if you had the information, you should have released this at the exact same time.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting because Mueller said there's not going to be any more indictments coming from the Mueller report. However, like, for example, the stuff they released about Trump in the summary said he's totally free of collusion. That didn't happen. And we're kind of leaving it open, basically, for Barr to figure out whether he thinks the obstruction of justice is a thing. And as they said in his summary, he's like, it's not a thing. We don't think these add up to charges. So I think what you outlined it well in that, like, they took a bunch of information and they gave it to now people who are going to decide whether they're going to be indictments. He only indicted the people he was like, I don't know, let's say sure of, right? Like they hit some really high standards.
Is it? Or is he only indicted the people that had direct connections to the president? It seems very, I mean, probably not, but it has the appearance of this extreme narrative-driven, thing. Like, because if you're trying to like show that, hey, all these people were dirty and they were around President Trump and they were all dealing with this Ukraine thing, oh, but we're not going to talk about this one guy. We're gonna put a pin in him and let that come out later because he was part of the Obama administration.
Okay,
that sounds dirty.
All right, Alex Jones.
Could, although I mean,
Really?
I mean, remember Mueller didn't say anything about anything, right? Like Mueller has not said one word still. I mean, he just gave the report over, and Barr is the one who said stuff about it. That's the only thing that we know. There could be tons of stuff. I mean, I think it's possible that Barr will go through this and find several other things and pass these down to different attorney generals and states and such to say. And we saw this with Manafort too in New York, right?
Yeah, but the same exact charge he got General Flynn. The same exact charge they got Papadopoulos. I mean, it's a tiny little thing.
Yeah.
Like, why? It has to do with all of this, like Ukraine, Russia stuff. This is the exact same thing. Yeah. So why didn't they do it at the same time?
Is the evidence as strong? I mean, we don't know maybe yet. Is that right? Probably the right answer.
So what he did was, around 2012ish, was he done with the White House around 2010? I think was the case. He left the administration in 20. I think
you're talking about Larry
Craig.
I want to say Greg Craig. I keep going to Larry Craig and Roger Craig. Neither one of the Craigs that are the right Craigs. Greg Craig is the one we're talking about.
Yeah. So I think he left in 2010. Then in 2012. He started doing all this lobbying stuff with Manafort.
Okay.
And it was with this Russian, I mean, it looks very dirty, but apparently he lied and didn't register with FARA, and he said he doctored some things so it didn't look like he even needed to register with FARA. But they came out later and said, okay, yeah, you should have. But he lied again during the Mueller investigation, so that's when they're hitting him.
I think that, we've said this kind of for a while, like I always thought that the rush to judgment against Mueller is maybe not a good idea, because I think this Mueller thing's turned out to be really good for the administration.
Yeah.
He was yes, it was a question about him, but it showed that he didn't do anything. Most of the people that had any significant contact with Trump didn't do anything. Yes, Manafort lied and Flynn lied, but they weren't really like tied to the campaign in that way. I think this has actually worked out well for them. I think it's actually exonerated from all these corruption allegations.
And hopefully we'll find out more information as the story progresses. I want to make sure that we have time to move on to Ilhan Omar.
Okay. So like I said, I have a very far out conspiracy theory that
more Alex Jones on the show.
I know. That's why I wore the hat. It's just not tinfoil. But I have the sneaking suspicion she doesn't really like America. That she's not really in it to win it for America. And I'm going to tell you why.
Racist.
I know. I am racist and Islamophobic and every other phobic out there. But let me explain. I have a few pieces of evidence I want to go through. Okay? Let's start with the most recent. I want to talk about her. Some people did something remark about 9/11, right? So some people did something on 9/11 and it was bad for Muslims. That was kind of her pitch of what 9/11 was, right? So you have that remark, and then you go from that to her defending herself. Instead of saying, you're right, this is something that happened to America, 3,000 people died. Remember, 3,000 people. It wasn't something that happened. It was the worst terrorist attack in American history. So her defense of herself is this. She quotes President George W. Bush, the guy who kicked Al-Qaeda's behind from here to heaven. She says, the people, this is George Bush, the people and the people who knock down these buildings will hear all of us soon. This was his famous speech at Ground Zero.
Yeah.
One of the greatest moments,
One
of the greatest moments in American history.
For any president.
For any president, period. And remember, we didn't know who had done it at that point. The fires were still going, right? We had no idea. So she says that is the same as what she said, some people did something on 9/11 to justify what she was saying. And then she pulls the Muslim card. What if he was a Muslim? Saying that if he was a Muslim president and said that, I guess he would have gotten in trouble, I guess is her.
I really don't understand that point at all.
It's the worst analogy ever. That's why. I've tried so hard to make sense of it. There's no point to be made on it. It's like, this was before we even knew who had done it. And
she is so bad at this.
Yeah.
She's so bad at that. Trump is like the opposite, right? He's Teflon Don because he kind of knows how to, like, when he does something stupid, how to deflect. Like, she's terrible at it. So you have this, you have anti-Semitic remark after anti-Semitic remark after anti-Semitic remark, never a real apology, always deflection, this and that. And then one more point I want to make is the way she talks about terrorism, the way she talks about Al-Qaeda, the way she talks about Hezbollah, these groups that are bound by an ideology of hatred, bound by ideology of violence. Do we have this video? I know it's.
Do we have time to play it? Okay, yeah, we have it.
Okay, real quick, let's watch. Don't just listen to what she says. Watch her facial expressions. Watch her body language when she talks about these groups.
I remember when I was in college, I took a terrorism class, and
is that a such thing?
Yeah, there was.
So there is a lab for that?
There was a class.
Hilarious.
Do you go to a lab?
No,
you go out a field trip.
We learned the ideology of.
I'm glad you do that.
And so it was the thing that was interesting in the class was every time the professor said Al-Qaeda, he sort of like his shoulders went up, and
Yeah, he's in command here.
Al-Qaeda, Hezbollah.
He's an expert.
And it was,
What's his name? What put his name on the
What
does he live?
Okay, so that's what I'm saying. Like there is an utter disrespect of America, in my opinion, in the way she talks about this country. And she comes from a place where people would give their left arm to be here, and then to disrespect it in this way as a member of United States Congress, that really gets to me. Gets to me really bad. And if it was one thing, that's something, but this is a pattern of behavior with no remorse and no consequences because people are too afraid to call her out on the left because she happens to be Muslim and is part of this intersectional protected class. And it's sad, it's pathetic, and I really didn't think we were going to be in this situation in Congress of all places.
Amen. Back in a minute.
I am completely perplexed as to what her point was.
We just spent this entire time trying to come up with what in the world Omar meant.
Do not try, because it just hurts your head if you try to put logic.
Can't figure it out.
I think explaining this deserves an entire unfiltered video. I want an entire video.
$200 unfiltered on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe. We'll see you in overtime.